Hello, my name is Judd Kratzer. I'm a fisheries biologist with the Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department, and I've been working on strategic wood addition projects in northeastern Vermont for several years. This is a practice that's growing in popularity, but it's not the right tool for every situation. So the purpose of this presentation is to help you ask the right questions and hopefully find the right answers to determine whether a strategic wood addition project is the right tool for your situation. The main reason we perform strategic wood addition projects is to benefit aquatic habitats and stream processes. But it's also worth mentioning and remembering that one of the other important reasons for a strategic wood addition project is to communicate the value of our streamside trees and the wood that they provide to our streams. There are many people out there that see large woody material in a stream and they think it's messy or dangerous and it should be removed. A strategic wood addition project is doing the opposite of that. We are purposely adding large woody material to streams for the benefits that they provide. And if a project is done properly, it can help to dispel those wrong views about wood in streams. I also want to mention that everything I'm going to talk about in this presentation and a whole lot more is included in the Vermont Strategic Wood Addition Handbook. For more details on the questions we're going to go through or on methods for how to perform this type of work, I refer you to that handbook. This is the big question I want to help you to think about and to be able to answer if you're considering a strategic wood addition project. And to answer that question, there are three other big questions to think about. One is, will adding large wood improve aquatic habitat? Will large wood benefit fish populations? And can large wood be added safely and effectively? Each of these questions has several sub-questions under it, and through this presentation, I'm going to walk through each of those sub-questions to help you answer these bigger questions. All right, we'll start with that first question. Will a strategic wood addition project improve aquatic habitat? And under this one, there are several sub-questions. The first one to consider is large wood loading in the stream channel that you're thinking about? Is it substantially less than it should be? This is usually going to be a yes in most of Vermont because we have a long history of logging, including cutting right down to the stream banks and of log driving. And so our forests are young and generally not contributing the amount of wood to streams as they would have in the past. But there are some upper limits to think about, and those are presented here. That first one actually comes from a study that was done in northeastern Vermont, where we were looking at a lot of different factors on many streams in northeastern Vermont, and the highest wood loading that we observed was about 47 pieces of large wood per 100 meter of stream. And a piece of large wood is something that is at least 3 feet long and at least 4 inches thick. That was very similar to a study that was done in New York and New Hampshire, where they looked at streams in mature forests and even some old growth forests. And I present their maximum wood loading that they observed. So if you're getting up to that range, then maybe you don't need to add wood, but usually you're going to see wood loading less than that. The next question to consider is the slope and width appropriate for large wood addition? What this is really getting at is stream power. Some streams are so powerful as a function of their slope and width that they aren't likely to hold large woody material. That wood might just wash right through. Those types of stream channels generally are dominated by bedrock and boulders, and those rock features are probably going to be what perform the functions that wood perform in a different stream anyway. So those are types of streams where you're not really going to have success in getting wood to stay, and the wood probably is not going to function like you might hope. This is a helpful diagram that can help you to determine whether your stream has the right bankfull width and slope for a strategic wood addition project. This diagram originally comes from Oregon, but it is included in the Vermont Strategic Wood Addition Handbook. The next question is, does the habitat need improvement? You could have a stream that has the right slope and bankfull width, but there are other features that are performing the same functions that large wood might perform. For example, this picture here is from a stream in the town of Groton, and the geology of that area is such that there are a lot of large boulders all throughout the forests and then in the streams as well. And this stream has the right slope and bankfull width combination for large wood in theory, but you can see the channel is already full of boulders, and there's some wood in the streams that it's performing some function, but this would be a really low priority place to add wood because it's already so full of boulders, and the boulders are already performing a lot of the things that the wood would perform in the stream. The next question is, can the target wood loading be achieved without significant negative effects on the riparian zone functions? What this is really getting at is, do you have enough trees on the stream banks to work with? Because most strategic wood addition projects are utilizing the trees that are on the stream banks, and you're dropping those into the stream because that wood in the stream performs important functions. Those live trees on the stream bank also perform important functions. So we need to have enough trees on the stream bank so that we can cut some of them and not really have a significant negative impact on those riparian zone functions. The next question is, can the project be accomplished without lasting significant impacts to stream beds and stream banks? Most projects that are going to fall into the strategic wood addition category are going to be really low impact. They're going to be performed with just chainsaws and grip hoist and just people walking in the stream. It is possible to do this type of work with machines. In fact, it would probably go quicker in a lot of cases. Of course, with large machines, you have to get them into the stream, so they're going to be running over banks and running up and down the stream channel. So you have to ask yourself whether those impacts are worth the benefits that you're going to get out of that project. Another question is the natural rate of wood retention lower than should be expected? And again, for Vermont streams, this is almost always going to be a yes, because we've had past channel alterations. Some streams were changed so that they could float logs on them in the past. We have young forests growing along our streams pretty much everywhere. And there are some places where there might be enough beaver activity to add wood at the rate that you might expect, but in a lot of cases probably the number of beavers that we have out there working are lower than they would be. So this is usually going to be a yes, but it's something to think about and consider if maybe there's already enough wood being added, wood being retained, that we don't really need to help the situation. All right, and the last sub-question under this larger question of whether a strategic wood addition project will actually improve aquatic habitat is there a long-term plan for restoration of natural wood recruitment processes? We don't want to have to keep going back and performing strategic wood addition projects. The wood that we add is not going to last forever, although the wood that gets added and becomes waterlogged and becomes part of the stream bed can last a very long time, even maybe centuries potentially. A lot of the wood we add is going to rot and wash away at some point. We don't want to have to keep going back in there and adding wood. What we want is a long-term plan so that in the future, we're going to have forests along our streams that are going to be mature, They're going to have big enough trees that are just going to fall in naturally, and because they're so big relative to the channel, they're going to stay. And there's enough wood on these banks that they're falling in at a rate that would be expected in a mature or old growth forest. So ultimately, that's what we want to see happen. So the best projects are happening on places where we're doing the strategic wood addition kind of as a jump start to the process, but ultimately we can do that, and at some point in the future, the forests are going to take over that process for us, and we don't have to go back in there with the chainsaws to keep adding wood. Okay, we've worked our way through all of the sub-questions under that first question of whether large wood will benefit habitat. And the next question is, will large wood benefit fish? This question could be optional depending on your situation, because large wood has benefits beyond just fish. It benefits stream processes. For example, large wood helps maintain sediments, retain sediments and fine materials higher up in the watershed rather than those sediments working their way downstream. It also helps with floodplain connectivity. So fish could be irrelevant depending on your funding source or the purpose of the project. But if the project has been promoted as something that's going to benefit fish, or if the funding source is focused on fish, then this becomes an important question. And the first question under this is the target fish population in need of improvement? There are trout streams all throughout Vermont. Some are more productive than others. It may be that the stream that you're interested in is already really productive. And so this is a good point to go and talk to the local fisheries biologist with Vermont Fish and Wildlife to determine what the fish community looks like in that stream, and in particular, maybe what the trout populations are looking like. And it may be that they're already performing at a really high level and they really don't need additional help at this time. The next sub-question is related specifically to trout or salmon. If trout or salmon are the target fish, then the question is, are water temperatures suitable? We know that water temperature is really the most important limiting factor for trout and salmon populations. So adding wood to a stream that's too warm for trout is not going to benefit trout. It might do other good things, but it's not going to benefit trout if that's the purpose of the project. So knowing something about water temperatures is helpful. And the last question related to fish is there evidence that large wood is a limiting factor for the target species? And it can be really difficult to determine what factors are most limiting for a particular species. But it's at least helpful to be thinking about this question, because we already talked about temperature, but there could be something else. Maybe there's water quality. Maybe there's some other issue that is inhibiting the fish population that you're concerned about. And if that's the case, then adding wood might not address that problem. And now moving on to that third big question, can large wood be added safely and effectively? And the first question under this is an obvious one that should be answered very early in the process. Does the landowner support the project? Obviously, the project should not be going on if the landowner does not support it. The next thing to consider is, are the people implementing the project competent? Currently, there are not many crews that are experienced in performing strategic wood addition projects in Vermont. Hopefully that will be changing. But for now, if you're interested in training, or if you're interested in finding a group that is able to perform this type of work, feel free to contact me. My contact information will be on the last slide. But there will be trainings available, and the Vermont Strategic Wood Addition Handbook was written at least partially to help people to learn how to implement this practice. This next question is a really important one. Can large wood be added without risking infrastructure or property? When I talk about strategic wood addition, I divide streams into two broad categories, small streams and large streams. Small streams are small relative to the trees on their banks. And if the trees on the stream bank, if the average tree on the stream bank is at least twice as tall as the bank full width of the stream, I consider that a small stream. On a small stream, we are generally not very concerned about wood moving very far because those trees are large, so large relative to the channel that they really can't move very far, assuming that you've got forested stream banks, because those trees are just going to get pinned up against standing trees on the stream banks. When you move to a larger stream, a large stream being one where the height of the trees on the stream bank is less than twice the bank full width, then you need to be a little more concerned about the wood potentially moving, becoming dislodged and moving. And so then it's helpful to think about, if the wood does move, where is it going to settle? You do not want the first place the wood settles to be a culvert or a bridge or someone's yard. And I've got in this diagram here, and this also is from the handbook, it shows some places where you might expect dislodged wood to settle. And it's helpful to have at least one of these, hopefully multiple of these features downstream of where you're adding wood in case the wood becomes mobilized, so that wood can settle in these places rather than on some infrastructure. And related to that last question is, will the large wood be stable in the stream? And I've got some examples here. On the left is an example of a small stream. You can see how large those trees are relative to the channel. That wood is not going to go very far unless there's a storm that's so big that it wipes out the entire riparian forest, because those trees just can't really move. In the middle there is a larger stream, and we took steps to get the wood to stay, and there are techniques that are outlined in the Vermont Strategic Wood Addition Handbook that can be used to secure wood on these larger streams. And the picture in the middle there shows some wood that was pulled back in between standing trees so it would be locked in place. Another method is to sharpen a log and to spear it into the bank. There are other methods that can be used to secure wood, and they're never 100% effective, but they can be helpful to make sure that the wood is less likely to move. The next question is there an acceptable plan for long-term monitoring? The Vermont Fish and Wildlife Department has really been working hard to monitor strategic wood addition projects, their effects on fish populations, their longevity, and the functions that they perform. And I'm not suggesting that everyone that does this type of work needs to monitor as closely as we have, but there should be at least some plan for long-term monitoring. You don't need to go out and look at every piece of wood that you've added, but you should plan to look at a subset of the wood that you've added, because that is the best way to learn. By going out there, definitely after the first year, and then hopefully after years after that, to look at some wood that you've added. You'll get to learn what worked and what didn't work. And that's why monitoring is really helpful and really important. And thank you for your interest in strategic wood addition projects and for viewing this presentation. If you have any questions, I would be glad to talk to you. or correspond with you through email, and you can see my contact information here.